Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. Yay! We have with us back Dr. Dennis Carroll again tonight. We haven't seen him for a few weeks. So very happy to be chatting with Dr. Dennis again about shadow walkers. Apparently we're going monster hunting tonight with the doctor. So buckle up, buttercups. Put your seatbelts on because yeah, we're going monster hunting. But before we do, let's just have a look at the schedule for this week and the upcoming week. Hang on, let me just find it here. Okay, there we go. It's on, my word. Okay. Well, if you didn't see Beverly Rose's show on Monday, very cool. We were doing a deep dive into the Royals as well, more Fergie and Andrew, and so much shenanigans going on there. So catch that. Solutions has just relaunched, so we've got the mini series explaining the Ankara field happening on Solutions, and then of course on Tuesday night we opened the Solutions with again Beverly Rhodes, and we were doing on our show called Spiritual Forensics, and we were doing a deep dive into the Oscar Pistorius and Riva Steenkamp case here. Oscar Pistorius, that well-known South African athlete, Blade Runner, double amputee, who unalived his partner, his girlfriend, in on Valentine's Day in 2013. That is such a interesting show to watch because we actually go into the energy, what was happening that day. Um, yeah, and of course, Beverly and I shine our spiritual lights on topics where we get to see more spiritual truths. So catch that. And then, of course, Jamie J on Tuesday night as well, or Tuesday, she was on talking about sort of pre-birth trauma, trauma in the womb. Wow, fantastic show, guys. Catch Jamie J. Her shows are really, really, really good. And then, of course, yesterday, Rachel Vaughan from Australia. Always amazing to talk to her. She's really got a lot of knowledge and insight. As well, of course, our lovely Jessie, that we had double trouble yesterday. We spoke about part two, the Harry Potter decode, and then Bad Bunny. Interesting characters that are influencers that are coming to the fore nowadays, and just looking at the symbolism and stuff and what's going on there. And of course, Dr. Dennis tonight talking about skinwalkers. And then I'm back with you guys both on Ara and Solutions tomorrow with Drop In with Chanti. And that's going to be 2 o'clock Central Africa time. So come hang out with me. Bring your tea, bring your chai, whatever it is. And we talk about just events of the week. I'm looking at some of the stuff that's been happening in Africa recently. So we're just going to touch on that as well. Lots of happenings here in Africa at the moment. I'm very happy about that, by the way. And then, of course, both Saturday and Sunday on the Saturday Reham on Solutions and the Sunday Loop on Arrow, we're replaying our older shows. So yeah, it's like a movie night. So come and join us for that. It's fun to have everybody hanging out and just replaying things. Yeah. Anyway, okay. And then, of course, let me just remind everybody members and Patreon book club on November the 19th. That's next week, Wednesday, I do believe it is. Gosh, where is time going, everybody? Where is time going? 19th of November, book club with Gary Wayne. So he's going to be talking to us on his book, The Genesis 6 Conspiracy Part 2. He'll be reading the first 2 chapters of the book, and you're invited to engage, ask him questions, etc. So that's happening live. Both members and Patreons welcome to join. If you're a member, it's going to happen on Zoom. Okay, it's happening on Patreon, but if you're a member and you'd like to join, please just send Morna. I know Morna has given his details just to give your link, your address, etc., so we can add you to the list of those who are joining the book club. And of course, here's our flyer for Tuesday. Men, Money, and Models. That's our show, Spiritual Forensics, the Oscar Pistorius and Reva Steenkamp case. Go catch that, guys. We're doing some cool things on that side as well. Yay! And without any further ado, we're bringing in our resident monster hunter, Dr. Dennis. We are so happy to have you back. How are you?
All right, everything good, going pretty good here. We're trying to stay warm as winter has arrived finally, and but that kind of reinvigorates my blood when the weather gets a little bit colder. I definitely start stirring around a little bit more, and so definitely that's why I've got my monster hunting hat on today. We're going to go deep into a little monster hunting, and I'll always make time for some monster hunting. It's one of my favorite pastimes, absolutely. Whether it's researching them or going actively out in the forest and places like that looking for them. As a matter of fact, I told some friends of mine who are also monster hunters, one very important rule of monster hunting is that you got to have a very good plan in place in case you find the monsters. You better be ready for that aspect as well. That's very important, definitely.
So what are you gonna do, like take a picture and run like hell?
Yeah. Well, that's what they say about me. Most people run from them. I run to them. I want to see more of them. I want to get a closer look. And somebody said that's probably what's going to do me in one day. I'm going to get too close of a look, and that might be the last one that I get. I hope that doesn't happen, but you never know. But that's just me. I instead of running away from it, I want to run to it and get a better. And that's what we see a lot on the internet, Chanti. You see a lot of these little short films and reels of people seeing stuff out in the woods or on the roads and all that, and they run. They cut and run. They'll the camera cut off and they'll run. I would not do that. No, I'm going to run to it. I want a closer look. I want a closer picture of it. I've always been that way, but
I agree.
You got to do that. You got to kind of overcome fear when you're monster hunting. That's a big weapon that monsters can use against you. Okay, definitely. And you can use it against yourself too. Fear is I call fear a double-sided blade. It cuts both ways. Something can use fear on you, or you can be a victim of your own self, to your own fear, and you don't want to do either one of those if you can help it. That's the way I've always looked at it. So the big thing when it comes to fear, especially when you're monster hunting and stuff like that, is that you've got to use that fear in the right way and not the wrong way. Use it, But you also got to remember this, Shanty. It's something I always remember from childhood. He who fights and runs away lives to fight another day, okay? So I can modify that. He who hunts monsters and then runs away maybe will live to hunt them another day, okay? That's the way that goes. But anyway, we're going to talk about a very interesting monster or cryptids, as we call them, that is very prevalent in the mountains near where I live. I can see these mountains from my front door, by the way. The Appalachian Mountains have a lot of weird and eerie stories and uncanny things that go on there. We've got rules about these mountains. You don't, if you see something, you don't look at it too hard, or you don't whistle at night, and you don't, you keep your doors closed, your windows closed at night and all that stuff. So we've got a lot of rules about the Appalachians. And because of the one thing that is very prevalent in the Appalachians, and they are witches, okay? The really dark kind of witches that you might look into, sort of like the ones from, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and something like that, or along those lines. The wicked witches, you might call them, the dark witches. They're evil, supposedly, a lot of them, and they do some evil stuff, supposedly. And one of the premier things, we did a show on this here a while back. We talked about witchcraft and the 9 black gates of power that they seek, and one of those is definitely shapeshifting. And another power that they also seek is mind manipulation. They can play mind games with you. So your adversary is very astute in that. If you go up against these guys or women, whichever they may be warlocks, they may be witches. The witches, you know, you can call them witches. They can be male or female. They can play some mind games on you. They can do some really weird stuff, and so you have to be aware of that. But and I will talk about later on in the show here about my run-in with two Appalachian Skinwalker Cherokee sisters. They were Cherokees and they were sisters. And I had a very interesting run in with them. I might have talked about this before, but you know, there's probably some people watching that's never heard about this, so I'm going to tell about that again today. But it was a very, very weird incident, very strange, and it really caught me off guard. I was very young when this happened. I was probably, I think, around 16, 17 years old, somewhere in there. And this came completely out of left field. It just, you know, it was not something that you planned for. It's something that just happened. And but it caught me off guard, definitely. But it taught me a lot of lessons about monster hunting. Okay, definitely. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But what is the Skinwalker? The Skinwalker is a witch. But the real true Skinwalkers, we talked about this for us, is the Yinatalushi, which is the Navajo witches. The Navajo reservation in the southwestern United States is where the Skinwalker is most prevalent. And you hear people talking about Skinwalkers a lot now. But that's the one they should be thinking about, is the one connected with the Hopi and the Navajo Indians, the Native Americans of the southwestern United States. But witches all over the world supposedly have this power of shapeshifting, okay? And so when you talk about them, if you want to call them Skinwalkers, you can call them that. But I like to call them witches because that's what they basically are. And if I'm looking for Skinwalkers, in my own mind, I'm looking for the ones on the Hopi or Navajo reservation areas, okay? That's just the way I look at it because I'm that way. But that's the Yinatalushi, is it's called. And that is, I think, Navajo for goes on all fours. That's what that means. It goes on all fours. Or in other words, walks like an animal. The Skinwalker. But they don't like to talk about the Skinwalker because they are very afraid that if you mention the Skinwalker, you will get their attention. And they will come see you. And you definitely don't want to visit some Skinwalker, definitely. And I have seen a lot of reports of people who, just take, for instance, some people letting in their dog or their cat one night to let it back in the house, you know. And it's not really their dog or their cat that comes in that night. It's a Skinwalker that looks like that. And it gets in their house. And you don't ever want to invite something like that into your house. Just like, you know, vampires or werewolves and stuff like that. You do not want to invite these guys, okay? You don't invite evil spirits of any type. And when you look at these witches, Chanti, they have evil spirits. They have what we call in witchcraft familiar spirits. They have that power. They have that demon buddy that empowers them to do a lot of this stuff. And it's just like when you plug in your hair dryer or your hair blower, you got to plug it into a power source or you don't get anything done, okay? Or you plug in your can opener or whatever it is, you got to have a power source. And the power source of witchcraft is the demonic. That's where you get a lot of your dark, evil powers and stuff from. And so they have these familiar spirits. You're not a witch. You're not a real, true witch if you don't have a familiar spirit, okay? The Bible talks about this too. You know, Moses had a really big law about that. You will not suffer a witch to live, you know, anyone who has a familiar spirit. And the reason Moses looked at it that way, if you have this dark evil spirit and you're buddy with it, then you're buddy with the enemy. You're a traitor to us, and that's why we're gonna, unalive you. You're not with us, you're against us. You're an enemy. And that's the way they looked at it. And definitely, we got to remember one thing when we talk about this kind of stuff. The demonic is a true enemy of mankind. Okay? It does not want it. It does not like us. It mostly exists to deceive and destroy us, basically. That's what it wants to do, supposedly. Having studied demons and demonology for most of my life, I found out this to be a very true assertion, because that is what they do. And, I warn people, if you ever encounter demons, you don't want to have a conversation with them. You don't want to talk. You don't want to buddy up with them. You don't want them around you. You don't want them to stay near you. They're poison. They're poison to the very atmosphere that you are in. And they will turn you inside out, upside down, and completely baffle you and confuse you to the point where they play these mind games on you, and you don't know whether you're coming or going anymore. You don't, you get confused, and that's the way they do this. They manipulate people this way, and that's what makes them so downright dangerous. But I will say this: there is, and we'll have to do a show on this one day. The creator of the universe has laid out spiritual laws. You know this well. A lot of people that study this stuff knows that there are certain spiritual laws. And one of those laws is that these demonic spirits cannot kill you outright. They're not allowed to do that. Demonic murder is very, very rare. Okay? It can be done, but it's very rare, because God has sort of drawn a line in the sand and said, hey, you just can't do this. Because if they were allowed to do that, Chanti, you and I wouldn't be here right now. We'd be dust in the wind, okay? They would have long ago destroyed us. So God has to draw that line in the sand. Said, no, you will not cross that line. You will not kill people. But they get around that like good lawyers, okay? Lawyers are not there to uphold the law. They're there to get around the law, okay? If you got to get a lawyer, he knows how to do that, okay? Well, demons are very much like lawyers, okay? They know how to get around these spiritual laws if they can. So that's why they get you to kill yourself. They do you in, but they get you to do it, to do their dirty work for them, because they're not allowed to do that, you see? So I call it murder by proxy. That's what it is, murder by proxy. And so, that's the way they work. And that's what makes them so downright dangerous. They can confuse you. They want you to, and I'll use a metaphor on this, okay? They want you to walk in the muddy waters of life so that you can't see where you're putting your feet. They don't want you to see where you're going. They want to confuse you. They want to twist your reality till you don't know really what's real anymore and what's not real. That's the way they work. And that's what witchcraft does. Witchcraft, and I've talked about this before, true dark witchcraft is designed to twist and change, manipulate reality. That's what it does. And when witches use the juju on you, and they do this mind stuff on you, and mind manipulation is one of the powers they seek, they can get you to believe anything or see what they want you to see. This is not very good and honest way to deal with people, okay? We don't want to do that. Human beings should not engage in stuff like that. But there are. And we got to remember one very important thing about witches. To a certain extent, they are still human beings, okay? They are still human beings. They're just going down the left-hand path, the bad way. They're going down the wrong road in life. But they're still human beings. But they have sold out to darkness. And that's what makes them so very dangerous in that respect. And the Skinwalker, being able to change and morph into whatever they want and all that stuff, is a very volatile power that they seek. But let me tell you this. It's going to blow your mind now, okay? We're going to get into some very weird territory here. There are witches out there that even Skinwalkers are afraid of. And we're going to talk about them today. Did you hear that? Skinwalkers are scared of these witches, okay? They don't want to mess with them. They are called the Shadow Walkers. And the reason they have this name is because they deal interdimensionally with us in many ways. They're not in our reality, and yet they are. They can walk and transcend realities. They can walk that shadow place between dimensions and realities, between the physical and the spiritual aspects of this universe, okay? That's where they do. That's the shadow land, the in-between, the liminal spaces. That's where they can dwell. And the shadow walkers have extreme power more so than skinwalkers because they can do things that skinwalkers cannot do. They can do much darker things, much more dangerous stuff. I'm going to tell everybody right now watching today, do not try this stuff. Don't ever attempt any of these things. I know it may sound kind of cool and may sound kind of very interesting, but don't be tempted to do it because over the years, I've had a lot of people come to me, mostly young people, and say, how can I raise a demon? Or how can I do this? How can I do that? How can I become a vampire or a werewolf? And I said, no, you don't want to do that. You do not want to do that because it requires a very bad and terrible price to do these things. You don't want to dabble in this stuff because it is highly, very dangerous, not just to you physically, but to you spiritually as well. And that's why it's so very, very careful. You have to handle this subject with kid gloves, okay, because it is very dangerous in many different ways. But the shadow walkers scare even the skinwalkers by the very powers that they have. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about the shadow walkers. The shadow walkers are what we would call supreme skinwalkers. They beat the regular skinwalker guys by a mile, okay? Because they can do some certain things. And I want you to try to wrap your mind about what I'm about to tell you. Shadow walkers can dream themselves into different realities. Did you hear that? They dream themselves into different realities. They can dream themselves into your dreams. They can dream themselves into your house. They can dream themselves into your lives. They can dream themselves into your pets. Yes, they can do this. They can actually astral project themselves spiritually into animals. They don't have to turn into that animal. They can put themselves in that animal. See, skinwalkers don't do that. Skinwalkers turn into those animals, and they don't look like, if a skinwalker turns into a coyote, it looks like some kind of monster coyote. It doesn't look like a regular coyote. It has some bad attributes about it. And if you ever see one, you'll say, hey, that's not a coyote. That's something else, okay? Trying to look like a coyote, okay? That's the way skinwalkers work. But the shadow walkers, they can be that coyote. They are possessing that animal, okay? Did you hear that? They are projecting themselves astrally into the bodies of these animals, and they can do that to a horse. They can do it to a cat on your lap, sitting on your lap. They can do that to a dog or a cow or a pig or whatever they want to do it to. They can do it to a raven. Listen to this. They can put themselves in the body of a spider crawling on your wall. That's how they get in your house, okay? Because, like I said, that spiritual law keeps things out of you. You have authority over these things, whether you believe us or not. You got to understand you do have authority. Your Creator has given you authority over these, but you got to exercise that authority. So there are certain spiritual laws that says, hey, as a spirit, I can't come into your house unless I'm what? Invited. But I can work around that law like a good lawyer, okay? I can get around that by turning into a spider and get into your house. Or by one night when you put the cat out and you bring it back in, it's not your cat coming back in. It's me, the shadow walker. And that's how I get in your house, okay? And that's how they do things to you. And they start really working on you this way because you have invited them in unknowingly. You let them in, okay? And how do spiders and roach bugs and stuff get in your house? Most of the time, a lot of people do not realize this, okay? Most of the time, they get in when you open the door at night. When you open the door and go out at night, they're waiting outside the door to get in your house. They're smart. They're not stupid. They're not out wasting their time looking for a hole in your wall. Most of the time, they're waiting by your door, waiting for you to open that door. And when you do, boy, they scuttle right in. I've seen them do it. Yeah, and they're very good at this at night because they're sneaky that way. They know you're not looking and you can't see them as well at night, okay? Believe me, bugs are smart. Bugs are not stupid. They know what they're doing, okay? Just like all the other stuff on this planet, okay? You better respect their intelligence. Spiders, scorpions, snakes, they know this. They know when they're waiting for you to open your door. I have found many snakes in the past hanging around my porch. They want to get in you. Why do they want to get in your house? Because they smell food most of the time. And it's warm there. It's a good hiding place. Your house is very inviting. And guess what? It's very inviting to evil spirits as well, like the shadow walkers, who become more spirit than human. And that's why they can dream themselves into your dreams. They are dream witches. They can show up in your dreams and attack you in your dreams, or put spells and curses on you in your dreams. You better be ready for this, and you better know how to deal with it when they do this kind of stuff. Now, I'm not saying they do this every night, okay? But if you've got one for an enemy, he's definitely going to come after you this way. Sooner or later, he's going to come after you, okay? And so you have to be careful of what enemies you make. You know, there's an old saying, you keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. So you got to know what they're doing, okay? But be very careful of what enemies you make, because some of them may know how to do witchcraft very well, okay? And that makes them much more dangerous than your average enemy would be, okay? But think about the shadow walker now. There he is. He can dream himself. He or her. Could be a woman too, man, male or female. They can dream themselves. Now, in Australia, the Aborigines talk about dreamland. They understand that is a spiritual dimension. That's what they're talking about. And you've heard that expression, dreamland. That's what that is. It means the spiritual world, okay? And they think, and a lot of people believe, a lot of cultures all over the world think that when you're laying there snoring at night, deep in a dream, you're also in an astral plane of the spiritual reality. Instead of the physical, you're half in the physical because your body's laying there snoring. But there's another half of you that's in the spiritual dimension. Your mind and your spirit itself is in that dreamland, that dream world. And the shadow walker knows this. And he knows that if that's the perfect place to attack you or to deal with you in your dream. Because here's the one thing, the one power of the shadow walker and the skinwalker is that nobody believes in them. If you don't believe in them, they've really got you right where they want you. Okay? If you don't believe what I'm telling you today, and if you say, Dennis, you're full of it, this is weird stuff, it don't really happen. Trust me, friends, this stuff is real. And it can very badly affect you. Definitely. But they love that when you don't believe in them, because that gives them a leg up in the saddle over you, okay? That gives them an advantage, a big advantage over you. I think Shakespeare said the power of the devil is that nobody will believe in him. He believes in you, definitely. So do skinwalkers and shadow walkers, okay? Let's look at the shadow walker a minute. If they can possess an animal, okay, let's say if I'm a shadow walker and I want to become a wolf, I find me a wolf and I put my spirit in that wolf. I am now a wolf, but I'll have the mind of a man. That's not a regular wolf anymore. That's a super wolf, okay? That's a monster wolf, folks. Because it's not your regular wolf out in the woods running around after foxes and stuff like that. It's now a wolf, an animal with the mind and purpose of a man or woman, as the case may be. Okay? So you're not dealing with just a wolf anymore. Not a regular wolf or whatever it may be, whether it's a fox or a cat or whatever. You're not dealing with that animal anymore. You're dealing with a possessed animal. Now, a lot of people say, and there's a lot of conjecture in demonology. Can animals be possessed? Absolutely. Inanimate objects cannot, because they do not have a spirit. You understand what I'm saying? Animals have spirits. Animals love, they think. They're just like us in that aspect. We have spirits, they have spirits. Don't ever come up and tell me that a dog or a cat does not have a spirit. That's ridiculous. Yeah. A lot of people report seeing ghosts, dogs and cats and animals after they pass on and all that. They have spirits, folks, just like you and I do. They love anything out there that has the capacity to love. And I've seen fish love people. Fish now, okay? I had a pet fish one time that would come up in the top of my aquarium and let me pet him. He would come to me like a dog, okay, and let me pet him, okay? Even a fish can show love. Think about this a minute, okay? These things have a spirit, and anything that loves has the capacity to love. That includes your dog, your cat, your bird, your frog, whatever. If it has the capacity to love, it has a spirit, okay? But it can therefore be possessed if it has a spirit, okay? Anything that has a spirit, there's that capability. The very famous scene in the Bible, where Jesus cast the demons into a herd of swine and they ran off the hill and killed themselves. Remember that? They were in those pigs, folks. They weren't riding them, they were in them. Okay? That's where you put them. So animals can be possessed. Don't ever forget that. And if somebody with such evil intent, like a shadow walker possesses an animal, you got a dangerous animal on your hands there. Even more so than it being a wolf or a tiger or whatever it is. It's even worse because now it's got the mind of a man or a woman with it and an intent, a human intent in its heart instead of an animal intent, okay? We got to remember something. All animals, no matter who they are, no matter what they are, all animals, and rightly so, have a fear of us. They have a fear of us, okay? That can be your pet dog, can be that way. There'll be a certain extent. You ever see them, they know that no matter how much they love us, they still can't really trust us. You understand? And for good reason, okay? Because we're human beings. They have a good reason for that, okay? But they really have that built into them. I think the Creator put that in them at the beginning of the time, Gary Wang can tell you all about that in Genesis because that's a fascinating book. And I have both of his books, by the way. They're great. Anyway, Genesis lays this out. What did God tell Adam? The fear of you and the dread of you will be upon every beast of the field. That's an enemy between us and animal kind. They know they can't trust us, and I don't blame them, okay? Because I know how people are, okay? Absolutely. And I would say I would trust a dog or a cat over a person most of the time because dogs and cats don't run around telling you lies or turning on you most of the time. They do love you. When they love you unconditionally. Humans have never learned that too much. Okay, humans don't do that much, unfortunately, but animals do. So that puts animals at a very big disadvantage. They can be possessed. Okay, if it's a raven, a robin, or whatever it is, if you can ream yourself spiritually into that animal, you become that animal. But that animal becomes you. Unfortunately, you are possessed, and they are possessed. The spirit of that animal in itself. That's a shadow walker, okay? Now, when the shadow walker does this, he can come at you sideways. You'll think you're dealing with an animal, and it's really something else, okay? If you think you're petting a dog or a cat, it's something else. If it's a shadow walker, it's not that cat or dog anymore, okay? And that's why people let these things in their houses unknowingly. Where's the real dog or the real cat at, Skinwalkers can do that. Instead, at the very beginning of the program, I said skinwalkers can sneak into your house that way too. But when you let them in, you're gonna say, "Hey, that's not my dog or my cat. That don't look like my dog. There's something wrong with that animal. That's a skinwalker." But the shadow walker uses your animal to get in your house. It possesses your dog or cat to get in your house. So there you don't really know what's going on because it looks like it's supposed to look like. Okay. That's the sneaky part about these guys. They know what they're doing. And that's why even skinwalkers are scared of them. Because they have this power. I've had people over the years, Chanti, come to me and say, how do I want to astral project. How do I do that? How can I leave my body and fly around and see things? I said, you don't want to do that either. That's very dangerous, okay? Very dangerous. I don't recommend anybody playing around with that stuff because once you leave your body, when you come back, who knows? There may be something else in your body when you get there. So you may have a problem. What if you can't get back in your body? If you cut that silver cord or break that golden bowl that connects the body and the spirit, you got a problem. You can't get back in your body. You're stuck. You know? Maybe a lot of ghosts are created this way. People playing around with astral projection, and it turns out very badly on them. This is something you don't really need to play around with. You know, this is something, and remote viewing can be part of this too. You got to know what you're doing and how to handle this kind of stuff, because you're really on dangerous, shaky ground here, spiritually speaking, okay, and physically, because they both go together. One day when you and I die, our spirits will separate from our bodies. Our bodies will go back to what they should be, dust and all that stuff. But our spirits, I believe this without doubt, all evidence points this to me, that your spirit goes on and exists somewhere beyond your reality that you know now, in some form or another, whatever it may be. That spirit never dies. It goes on in some form or another. Well, your body's not that way, but you got a spiritual, mystical connection with the spirit and the body right now. Okay, that's what makes you a living soul. Okay, even animals are living souls. Dogs and cats are living souls, just like you are. Okay, they have that tie too. And these guys, these shadow walkers, they're messing around with that. Don't you see what they're doing? They're violating spiritual laws on a big time basis here, folks. Very dangerous, dark, and evil stuff that they're dealing with. No wonder the other skinwalkers are scared of them. I would be scared of them too, because of the powers that they have. And when they do these things, they can also manipulate your mind. They get into that's what I talked about earlier. The demonic is very good at doing that too. They can manipulate the mind. So in your dreams, they can get you to believe things. You know, you wake up the next day and say, you know, I had a weird dream and I saw somebody and they told me something, you know. Was it prophetic or was it something that's going to happen? They can play games with your mind this way, okay? They're sneaky, very sneaky. And let me tell you, I'll tell you, illustrate a point right quick. That encounter I had with the vampire girl out in the graveyard, you remember me telling you about that, Chanti? I had something very weird that happened after that incident. For many nights after that happened, she showed up in my dreams. And I think it's because I shook hands with her. I actually touched her. She was able to do this. And this is what shadow walkers can do as well. They got to touch you too in order to form some kind of a spiritual bond that allows them to do a lot of these things. So that's very careful. Be very careful, folks, who you shake hands with, who you hug, who you let close into your personal space. It may not be somebody you want to do that. Okay, it might be somebody with very bad intentions. So be very careful, and be careful of things that you take from people. This is another big thing in witchcraft. And believe me, folks, we've got a lot of witchcraft going on in this world today, more so than has ever been before in the history of this world. Witchcraft is being used as a weapon of the darkness against us, big time. Okay, and it's popping up in many different forms and areas and philosophies and all these other things, just coming at us from different directions. And just like, you know, we've talked about these people performing rituals on stage and calling it entertainment, when it's not. It's really rituals. And if you watch this stuff, unknowingly, you are participating in it. They know that, but you don't, unfortunately. So you're being, you know, fooled. You're being manipulated here on a big basis. So be very careful with this stuff. Witchcraft is out there and it is working against you and I. Big time, because this is one of the main powers that the darkness in this world uses. Witchcraft. Dark, black witchcraft. Okay? And definitely the shadow walkers have a big handle on this stuff, and they know what they're doing. They can also be sent not only to do these things, they can be sent to assassinate you. Do certain things, play these games on you so that you will commit suicide. Or get into certain, drive you insane to a certain extent, and you end up in a mental hospital. Whatever the sense, they can do these things. They have this power. This is within their ability to do so. Well, that's why it makes them so very dangerous. They're not only playing with you spiritually, but they're playing with you mentally as well while they're doing this stuff. So that's why you got to be very careful when it comes to shadow walkers. Like I say, they are supreme witches in this area. And I'm going to tell you now about my own experience that I had. And like I said, I was I was maybe around 16, 17 years old. And I was in the mountains of North Carolina, which is the state next to where I live. And I was deep up in the mountains and on the Cherokee reservation. I've been there many times. I had a lot of friends that were Cherokee back in the day. I spent a lot of time with them. Brilliant people. I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot about magic and stuff and all that stuff because the Cherokee go way, way back. They have been here for a long, long time. They are people very close to the land. They are the land to a certain extent. So I had a lot of friends that I used to associate with up there. And but anyway, I was up there. I was about like 16, 17 years old, and I was up there with a church group that was camping out for a weekend. They were doing a weekend camp out, And that night, being the explorer kind of guy I am, and I do love to explore things, okay? I do go out exploring urban things and forests and stuff like that. I was really restless that night, and I said, well, I'm going to get up and walk around, So I had a friend with me. Well, he was sort of an acquaintance. I didn't know him real well. It was a guy named Bill. And he was probably about like a year younger than me or something like that. He said, well, I'll go walk out, we'll go walk out together, we'll walk around a little bit. So we started walking around. It was night. I mean, it was probably like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, it was dark night. And we come up on walking through the mountains, we come up on this dirt road that ran through there, and the dirt road ran up the mountain a little bit, And I said, we could go. He said, what do you want to do? Or something. I said, well, the town is back that way. And we could go on up the mountain and just see, look around. Maybe we can see, the valleys and all that or something, I said, we just might go up there. And the moment I said this, Chanti, all of a sudden I heard a whippoorwill. Now, a whippoorwill has a very distinctive call. And I knew it well. I'd heard it a lot of times. Spent a lot of time in the woods, even when I was young. I always was out in the woods doing something. I was very familiar with a whippoorwill. And it makes a call that sounds like whippoorwill, That's why it gets its name. And it is kind of a night bird. But mockingbirds can do that call too, by the way. That's why they call them mockingbirds. But this was probably a whippoorwill. Matter of fact, it was very close. It was like across this dirt road in a bush over there, big bush trees that were over there. And I told the guy I was with, I said, watch this. I can imitate the whippoorwill. Okay. I said, watch this. So I did the whippoorwill, bird call. And all of a sudden it answered me back. And the guy said, that's neat, boy. It answered you back, I said, well, that's weird. I've never had one do that. I've never had a bird answer me back when I call them. So I did it again. And sure enough, it answered me back again, And I told the guy, I said, hey, let's walk over there a minute and see what this is. This is weird, And so we walk across the dirt road. And then we go under the trees and the bushes there. There's like a stand of trees. And all of a sudden, somebody comes up behind me and puts a knife to my throat from behind. I mean, a very long knife to my throat. And I'm like, okay, hold on, what's going on? I'm not here to hurt you and anything, Start trying to talk myself out of this situation, And they did the same thing to the guy with me. Somebody a little bit shorter, than whoever was behind me, put a knife on his throat. And I could see them. I could see her. She was a woman, okay? She was a younger woman. The one that had the knife in my throat was a woman. I didn't know this at the time. I couldn't turn around and see her, okay? They were 2 Cherokee women. I found out later they were sisters, okay? And they were hiding under those trees. And the first sister says, tell me, she's got the knife in my throat. She says, tell me, why should I not cut your throat right now? I said, well, I can think of a lot of reasons. Okay. I said, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not here to hurt you or anything like that. So I start talking real fast, trying to get out of this situation. And she said, she kind of laughed a little bit. She said, I guess you figured out I wasn't going to, wasn't there to do anything to him or whatever. So she kind of turned me loose, and I stepped back away from her and turned around. That's when I could see her. Now, I could not see her very well because we were under the shadow of these trees. Okay. And there was a picnic table like there. And they both sat down on the picnic table and started talking to us. And they put their knives up, thank goodness. Okay. They put their knives away. And I was thinking, hey, I don't think I want to hang around with these gals. I want to leave. Okay. But I didn't want to turn around and just walk off because I figured they might take offense at that and come after me again. So I talked to them a little bit, and they were and I could smell a smell about them. And I'm not going to say it was alcohol. It did have a little bit kind of a scent like alcohol, but it was something else about that. And I'll tell you about that later, what I think I found out later. At this point in time, you got to remember, folks, I didn't know what skinwalkers were, okay? I'd heard about things like that witches could do stuff like that, but I didn't know about skinwalkers and things like that much, okay? I did research on my incident later and found out a lot of stuff, but I learned some things that night, okay? But anyway, they were just kind of got a little bit friendly, and they were like laughing at us, and it wasn't like a happy laugh. It was sort of, I call it cackle, like, it was kind of an evil intent to it. It was just like they were making fun of us, and they were just playing with us, like a cat with a mouse kind of a thing. And I was saying, hey, I got to get out of here. I want to leave. I don't want to hang around these gals, okay? Anybody puts a knife to your throat is usually not your friend, okay? So I was ready to leave. So anyway, I'm talking to them. They said, what are you out walking around doing at night, this time of night? Are you out looking for women or what? Something like that. And I said, no, we were just out. We were restless. We're camping down there, and we were just restless, was out walking around. She said, do you know you're not supposed to whistle at night in these mountains? I said, no, I heard something like that. She said, well, don't you ever do that. It's because something will answer you back, just like I did. I said, well, that's a good thing, I'll remember that, And she said, I'm the one that did the whippoorwill call to get you to come over here. She said, you guys are stupid and all that. They were making fun of us, And she said, there's a lot of weird things goes on in these mountains. And my sister and I, we know a lot about this stuff. We're witches. We do this, we do all our stuff. And I'm saying, oh, really? This is very interesting, you're witches, huh? And she said, yeah. She said, she tells you what, said, we're going to have fun tonight. She said, you stay right here and you watch across the road over in them bushes and see what happens. What's going to happen in a few minutes. Like that. And I'm thinking, oh, are they drunk here or what? I mean, what's going on with this? This is crazy. So they laugh, both of them laugh, and one of them is a little taller than the other. Okay. Don't forget that. It's very important. One of them's a little taller than the other. So they both walk across the road. And like I say, this is, there's no street lights around and all this, but there was probably a moon that night. I could see, but could not see very clearly. To this day, I can't tell you exactly what they looked like, but they had long, like stringy hair, and they had honest to God, looked like some kind of buckskin dresses on of some sort. I don't know. I could see they had beads on and stuff. I didn't know what all they had on them. I was just wanting to get out of there, actually. Okay. And so I said, so the guy says, let's get out of here. And I said, let's stay here and let them get gone, and then we'll leave. Okay. So they walked across the road, both of them did, into the bushes over there. Okay. And in a few minutes, we're standing there, getting ready to cut out of there, And all of a sudden, the bushes start moving and shaking. And I hear, I'm not going to say chanting, but I hear like they're talking or whispering or something. I'm going, what's wrong with these women? What's going on with this? And all of a sudden, while we're standing there, me and the guy looking, 2 wolves step out of those bushes. I'm not serious. They were wolves. Okay. And they look kind of like a German Shepherd size wolves. Okay. Maybe a little bigger. 2 of them, one bigger than the other. Okay. Remember that? That was the way the size of the sisters. One was bigger, one wolf bigger than the other. And they looked at us and started up that dirt road up the mountain. And as they started up the dirt road, they stopped at the very end, turned around and looked back at us, and their eyes were glowing red. I swear to you, I kid you not, they were red. Okay? And they turn back and look at us and then turn around and leave. And that's when I told the guy, let's get the you know what out of here. Okay, I'm leaving right now. I did not understand what happened that night. Okay. But during research later on, I found out exactly what skinwalkers were, and that's got to be what I ran into that night. We went when we were left to call when we started to leave. I went back over those bushes. I thought, oh, they're hiding in the bushes or something. You know, it's something playing trick on us or whatever. I look and we get to that bush, and behind the bushes is a drop off of about 30 feet down a ravine. They are not there. There's no way they could have went down that ravine. I mean, they would be dead. There was a drop off behind that. Where did they go? They walked out of there looking like wolves and went up that road. That's what I believe without a doubt they did. And that's what skinwalkers do, my friend. And I believe that night, those two Cherokee sisters were definitely skinwalkers. Wow. And a lot of stuff began to add up when I did research. And this is what you need to do when you do investigative research. You've got to get deep into these subjects. And the more I learned, the more I understood what happened that night. The beads that they wore, the clothes they wore, the way they acted, the very maniacal way they laughed, the weird stuff they did, every bit of it added up. 2 + 2 = 4, and that means skinwalkers. And that's definitely, I believe, what they definitely were. And I think they were, you know, we probably met them on a good night. They didn't really want to hurt us, or just wanted to play with us and have fun with us or something. I don't know. But we were very extremely lucky to get out of that without our throats getting cut, definitely, or without being attacked by skinwalker wolves, whatever the situation. But one more thing I'm going to tell you about. In the mountains of North Carolina, at that time that this incident took place, there were no wolves. All the wolves had died out. They have been reintroduced in the last few years so that there will be a predator to kill all the deer and all that. But at that point in time, there were no wolves in the mountains of North Carolina like that. I mean, not in that area anyway that I was in. Unless you count the skinwalkers for that, definitely. But that's my story of my run-in with two skinwalker sisters. It was very interesting, but I learned a lot that night. Whenever I encounter the supernatural, whether it be different entities or situations, I always come away with learning something from it, you know. And I was taught that many years ago, even if bad things happen to you, try to get something good out of it by learning something about it. And that's what basically happened with that incident. But I warn you, you know, if you feel like you are encountering something like that, your best and most formidable weapon against the darkness, my friends, is knowledge. Knowledge will help you out in these situations. Don't let fear rule you. Let knowledge be what guides you. Because that is the best weapon of all, especially against things of a supernatural nature.
Wow.
So what do you think about that story?
That's wild, Dennis. That's wild. But I mean, I can't help but, you know, when I sit here and I listen to you, I mean, they could so easily have killed you. There was not even a question that they had that power to either slit your throat or do something while they were in wolf form or whatever it might be, or at least done some harm to you. But, you know, for me, it says, you know, even that there's something in them that still recognizes light. They understood, you know, you were not there to harm anyone or hurt anyone. You know, I think nature is incredible because if you take care of nature, nature takes care of you. And
I think things like that, Shanti, and we got to recognize that they have that power. And I think, you know, that old saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I think there's certain levels of that, you know, that some people have. You can have a certain amount of power, and I have found this out to be true with witches. They love the power. That power is very intoxicating to them. And I've said this before. power is the most addictive thing on this planet. Control and power over things. People love that. And it will affect you to certain levels. I think we might have run into a couple of people that had, like you say, still a little bit of a light left in them. Maybe that they didn't, completely go to that darkness and destroy it. They could have killed us either as wolves or as people. And they didn't, or definitely somebody was looking out for us. I like to believe that too. Okay. I think, greater power was looking out for us. But, you got to remember one thing, like with witches, witch doctors, all these different kind of people, the shaman, the evil people that do these things, there's still human beings in there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, to me, that's a fascinating story. They could have done so much more, and yet they chose not to. It's, and that's why I say, had you, in my opinion, had you gone there with the intention of destroying or being harmful in any way, they would have reacted to that. It's, you look at an animal, like I mean, we know animals read energy, right? That they respond to our energy. That's why often you'll hear about dogs attacking random people or whatever, or very angry people will often get attacked by dogs, for example. The dog responds to the energy. It's not so much that you're good or bad or whatever. It's responding to your energy in that moment as well. So it feels to me like these things actually, and we know these creatures of the night, they read energy very well, right? They are very good at these things. I mean, they speak via ESP and all these things all the time. So they will just say to me that that was a response. They understood you were not there to harm. So I just think that stuff like that, they're not innately evil. I like what you said when you said you go there and you learn it, there's always something to learn. That to me is telling me.
I think too, Angie, that these entities, they operate on a lower vibrational level than we do. We're walking around, hopefully, most of the time on a higher vibrational level. That's the way I like to look at it, spiritually speaking. And if we go down to that lower level, whether it be depression or fear or whatever, when we go down to that lower vibrational level, they are more able to attack us that way if they need to or if they want to. That makes them more able to do something to us. But if our vibration level is higher, I think that impedes them from doing a lot of their damage and stuff that they want to do to you if they have a mind to do that. And so if you walk around with a higher vibrational level, a better intentions, a pure heart, a good mind, and doing things that you need to be doing the right way and doing the right things, that's going to protect you too, to a great extent, when you do run into certain things like this. And I think that night, that guy and I were very innocent in what we were doing. We weren't out to harm anything or do bad. We were just, curious. And I think they felt that. I think they picked up on that, which is why I didn't get my throat cut for one reason. But I was at a high vibrational level too. Okay. I mean, I was, doing what I was doing and all that. Yeah. I think that had a lot to do with it too,
It totally does. This is exactly when I talk about your vibe protects you, I mean, your vibration is your protection. You don't need anything else other than your vibration. So your vibration in that in that situation was your protection, because we know nothing wants to be harmed, and so when we look at these things and we can understand, it's another form of life, right? We might not understand what it is right now, right? But the fact that we actually respect that.
Yeah, that's what I tell other monster hunters when we talk about doing this stuff. You're out doing monster hunting and all that. I'm not out there to bring one back and hang him as a trophy on my wall. Okay, I'm not a hunter that way. I'm just want to see it. I want to experience it and know for my own self. I'm not out to bring a trophy back. But some monster hunters don't see it that way. They go out armed to the teeth, ready to kill these things for no reason, just the point of killing them. That's not good. I'm gonna tell you what, and I always warn monster hunters and everybody, no matter which way you're coming from when you're dealing with a paranormal, supernatural, you better have a pure heart and your intentions need to be good. Okay, because these things know that when they deal with you,
Exactly.
they know where you're coming from. If I were to, like, say, go up against Dogman tomorrow, and I just want to see him and experience him, and I'm not there to kill him or unalive him or do bad things to him or trap him. I think he will know that what my intention is, and that's the way he's going to deal with me. Same thing with if I were to walk into the African bush up against a lion. Okay, let's say I just happened up on a lion one day, and I've had this happen with mountain lions. Okay, they know that I think they pick up immediately whether I'm there to harm them or not. Most of the time, it's going to come out good. Okay, unless I do something stupid, like the wrong kind of movement maybe or something that makes them think, hey, I better do something to this guy before he does something to me. Yeah, but if you don't be stupid about these things, if you try to have that pure heart, try to have that good vibrational level there acting for you, I think you're going to come out of that situation most of the time okay. But
Exactly.
if you're not bad intention, like these stupid people we talked about last time, these Christian hunters, they call themselves, which is an oxymoron, by the way. These people that do this kind of stupid stuff, they're out there with bad intentions. Animals know that, and that's why, you need to deal with these things. You need to have, and that's what I said, the number one asset of a monster hunter is a pure heart. You got to have that pure heart, those good intentions, or it's not going to come out the way you want it to.
That's exactly true. It's exactly what I was saying. It's like those witches or skinwalkers or wolves, whatever they were, they felt your intention and they understood you were there to learn. So they taught you something that night. They taught you something very valuable. And they taught you exactly the stuff that we talk about here, is that when your vibration is high and you don't have that negative, you don't have a bloodlust. You see, an animal
Mm-hmm.
will come for you when it smells your bloodlust. That's when an
Oh,
animal feels it has to protect itself against you. When it smells your bloodlust, that's really what it is. So,
oh,
and it's true what you say. I mean, I've been in situations where um, definitely there've been hunters when I work with the big cats, right? And I work with the big cats in rehabilitation, lion, tigers, cheetah, everything. I work to them. Um, if there's a hunter in the
mm-hmm.
midst, you got to know. I have seen more than once how that animal will, from its enclosure, it will single out that hunter, and it will like run right up against that fence, pretending to go trying to go for the hunter. The hunter can be very freaking lucky there's a fence between him, because I swear to God, if there was not, that guy would be tickets. They know they know who is good and who is not good. Yes, we can never ever deny an animal is a wild animal. Even when you're working with animals in rehabilitation, all of us who work with three big cats and things, we know at any moment that animal can take you out like that. However, I have to tell you, for everyone who works with big cats and animals, that's a death of honor. Okay,
oh yeah.
it really, really is a death of honor. So, we understand they are instinctive creatures. I mean, you look at a dog as well, a domestic. When a dog gets into a fight, there's something that changes in its eyes, and suddenly, no matter how much you try and animal communicate with that dog, it doesn't hear a single word you're saying. When you're in a bad mood and fighting with someone, right? And your
Oh yeah.
adrenaline is rushing, very difficult to contain that. Now think about your animals and stuff like that as well. We have to respect animals. We have to respect different creatures of different species have different ways of doing things. And when we go into the world with a spirit of learning, like teach me, when we go
That's what
into
I've
the
said.
world with that spirit, these animals will teach you. They will. They will be kind to you. I mean, I was in Thailand. I love snakes. Okay. I touched a black cobra with my toe, literally with the tip of my toe. Zhup, the head, it was like in a nanosecond. Poof. And she immediately recoiled back. Immediately, I went, "Oh, hello." We saw it. It was the most. Now, any other person would probably have been freaking out and what have you. She and I, we just looked at each other. We greeted, and she left, and I left. It was like that type of engagement. Lots of stuff happens like that. That's when I say, when you are coming from the place that you are a steward of the earth, and a
There's
steward
a there's
being a
a
steward of the
uh,
earth does not.
there's
That's something you cannot fake it. You cannot
yeah.
fake being a steward.
There's
The animals,
a trick.
everyone feels that.
There's a trick you can do in India where you can kiss a cobra. You know, I've always wanted to try, but I hope he's a happy-go-lucky cobra. Okay, when I did, if I ever try that, but I won't say this, Chanty. You know, about me, my own self personally. You know, I used to have a dog, and it was very close. I was very close to that dog. That dog knew my intentions without me ever saying or making a sound. He knew what I was doing. They are super sensitive. Animals are much more sensitive than we are to moods and everything around them, their complete environment. But let me say this one more thing about that. If I ever shoot anything, okay, unless it's a matter of life and death, I'm going to be shooting it with a camera, okay, folks? Okay, not a gun.
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be shooting it with a camera. That's me. I do not indiscriminately kill for anything unless it was a matter of survival. That's all, you know. But these people that just go out to do that, they've got bad hearts and bad intentions. And definitely, if I were an animal and I knew that, I would be very wary of these people. And that's why these animals, I think all animals have that built-in, like I mentioned earlier, that built-in thing that God put in them. They never truly trust us, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
They shouldn't. What we do to animals is horrific. The dismissive attitude we have with animals. And again, I said, look at slaughterhouses. The mere fact that we buy meat from a shop says we support that, and we have to look at our own hypocrisy towards ourselves. And if we can't see that that is hypocritical, then there's a big disconnect there. That stops us from exiting the matrix. You see, this is why I teach this stuff. It's not to try and be high and mighty and to try and tell you, ooh, be a vegan or whatever. I'm not saying anything of that. I'm saying that when you are aware how energy works, how consciousness works, how we are all part of the same system, how we are all connected. We're all brothers and sisters, actually. We are all here to take care of each other. But when we renege on that stewardship and we choose to be destructive rather than constructive, nature feels that. Nature
Yeah,
is you, it's animals, it's trees, it's birds, it's everything that is natural from God. The mountain, the mountain will support you when you walk up there. That's the thing. When you're a steward of the earth, like you could be falling off the end of a cliff because you stepped wrong, right? Something about that mountain, just the bush in the right place, will stop you from falling, for example. That's how nature protects us. And this is what I try and say to people. It's not about anything else other than understanding when you're in harmony with true Christ, the true Christ, you are in harmony with the divine and you're in harmony with nature because nature is God in action. We're a crazy species, Dennis. We pray to an invisible God, right? Without realizing that the very nature that we destroy is God made visible. And when we
mhm.
realize that, We're going to treat nature in a very different way. And I'm not talking about worshiping. I don't worship Jesus. Jesus never required worship, ever. I don't worship anything. I have respect for life. I have respect for all of life. I have such honor for every creature. Every creature has its magic. And if we don't see that, we'll never, ever know that. So this is what I choose to see. Every little animal I can save, the tiniest bug, the tiniest ant, I save them all, boy. I talk to them. I do. That's what I do. I love them. If I've heard something, the other day I accidentally nearly unalived a bee. I was so devastated. I'm sitting in our garden crying, trying to take the honey off the bee because it got stuck in my honey jar, and my cat's next to me. And I'm crying, and my cat's right there, like saying, "It's okay, mom, just put water on." And eventually the honeybee flew away. I mean, that for me is me and my cat, we saved the honeybee, but she flew into my jar that I'd left open. So that was my fault. I
Mm.
felt really bad about that. Do you know what I'm saying? So when you work with nature, nature looks after you. Nature becomes your bodyguard. It does. And this is what I keep saying to people, but you have to transcend your fears. You have to understand that the animals that you consume every day, you you consuming their soul and their spirit and their fear and their pain and their torture as well. Unless you see that, you're not going to see truth. We have to look at that. We look at the cabal eating our babies, right? We complain that they eat our babies. Hello?
Mm-hmm.
How many babies of other species are we eating? Lamb, chicken, veal, pork,
Mm-hmm.
you name it. We will devour it because we feel it's our right. It's not our right. And until such time that we don't have that disconnect, we never, ever going to exit the matrix. Every creature has a right to life. You don't have the right to take its life unless it's for mercy or defense, accident, all of that sort of stuff. It's just an attitude we have to change. And as long as we are in that space that we are dominant on this planet. You see, everything on this planet is actually the master slave. We're all masters and slaves, actually all slaves to a system, even though you might think you're a master.
Oh,
And until such time that we see that, we're never ever going to get out of the matrix. And that's what I say. This is what I try and teach people. It's got nothing to do with me trying to impose my values on you. Not at all. I'm trying to show you how energy works. I'm trying to show you how energy works because energy can never be created or destroyed, only ever transferred or transformed. So you can
mm-hmm.
never destroy what you've done or what you've created. There's always a ripple effect. And that's called
Oh, yeah.
karma. And we think that's juju. It's not. It's your own actions coming back to you. That's unfortunately the truth. Or fortunately. Anyway,
Yeah,
Dennis, it's been a wonderful time.
it- yeah. There's an old saying, Shanty. If you come from a good direction, you usually go in a good direction. And that's the way to look at it. If you
Exactly.
come from a good direction, you go in a good direction. If you're coming from a bad direction, you're going in a bad. You're going to go to the bad. So it's good to stay in the good direction. Because that's where you want to go. So you got to come from that good place to get to that good place. But it's got to be a good place you're coming from. And that makes sense. Very much like what the Bible says. You cast your bread upon the waters, they will come back to you. Whatever. If you put bad bread out there, you're going to get bad bread back. If you put good bread, you're going to get good bread back. That's it. That's another spiritual law there, by the way. Absolutely.
Exactly. Totally is, Dennis. It totally is. Anyway, Dennis, it's been another great conversation. We see you back in 2 weeks' time.
Okay.
And guys, we're gonna be looking with Dr. Dennis either here And we're going to be also doing some shows on solutions, the new solutions. So you're going to catch us there, but watch the schedules and we'll keep you updated. And I want to just say thank you to everybody for joining us this evening and being part of our chat. Always fantastic to have you all here. And I think we always have a lot to learn from these shows. Dennis, is there anything you want to close off with? And of course, where can everybody get a hold of you? Is there anything you're doing? Blah, 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 blah. Before I'm just going to pop up your banner here quickly. There we go.
Yes, I'd like everybody to visit me over on my podcast channel, Hunting the Shadows YouTube podcast channel and agency. We have some great shows over there, and like and subscribe if you get a chance. Come over and subscribe. And this show will be on my. Will also be this show. I'll have a link to it. Will also be on my library on my channel. Okay, if you want to access it that way too. And that's Hunting the Shadows YouTube podcast channel. And last night I had a great show. We have shows on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I talked about the demon seed last night. So if you missed that, you might want to go back and check it. It was a great program. And Friday night I'll be doing Paranormal Point of View. We're going to be talking about some weird stuff going on in Los Angeles. What's going on out there? I like to call Los Angeles, by the way, the city of Los Angeles. I think we got a lot of Los Angeles out there. But anyway, that's going to be Friday night on Hunting the Shadows YouTube podcast channel. You can reach me at DennisWCarroll.com or email me at DennisWCarroll@gmail.com. I have a paranormal consultation service. If you need help paranormal wise in any way, demonology, whatever the situation, or if you just want to talk to me and tell me a story, that's good too. And you can reach me at the website or the email at any time. All consultations are free. Okay, so don't worry about that. We're not talking money here. And so you can check in with me on that. And my books are available on Barnes and Noble and Amazon.com. Just look for Dennis W. Carroll as the author. As a matter of fact, I just did a foreword for a great book that's out, Monster Hunters of America, by my good friend D.A. Wysong, great author. And I did the foreword for her. I was honored to do the foreword on this, and it's already a bestseller on Amazon. Okay, so go check that out if you get a chance, and support her. And don't forget, we want all the subscribers to come on over there to Hunting the Shadows and like us. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. Appreciate you very much. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you. Lots going on over the next few days. Please check the schedule because now I've hit a blank. Take care, everybody. God bless you all. And I'll see you very, very soon. Be cool. Be kind. Bye.